Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is, are you ready for the CCS or the Certified Coding Specialist exam? If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. Okay guys, today we are talking about the CCS exam with AHIMA. This is the American Health Information Management Association. A couple of disclaimers first, okay? I'm gonna put this out there first. Number one, if you are brand new to my channel or you haven't watched a lot of my videos yet, something you got to know about me. I am very blunt and I will tell you like it is. And I tell you like it is and I'm very blunt because I care. It is because I care and I am not trying to sell you anything. That is the first part. The second part is this video is not a challenge. I am not challenging personally anybody to take this exam. What I'm going to explain in this video is some of the things that you need to have already for yourself to be prepared to take this exam. The Certified Coding Specialist is the top tier. This is the gold standard of medical coding credentials, all right? Literally 99.999% of employers ask for the CCS when they are looking for medical coders. I will also say this other part too. Getting the CCS does not guarantee that you will get a job. It doesn't guarantee that you will get a job, especially if you don't know what you're doing. So passing the certification exam is only one part of it. The other part of it is you actually have to know. Now, I had the CCA for many years. This is going to go into the second part of my disclaimers first. I have 13 years of experience currently, right? I have been a medical coder as long. And I have had the CCA all of those years, right? It wasn't until last year that I went and sat for my CCS because I had been in the outpatient setting for many years. The thing that people discount about the CCA is a very powerful credential. A lot of people ignorantly don't know about the CCA. Oh, no one asks for it. They do ask for it. Because when you look in these job listings, a lot of times people are saying medical coder, and when in actuality, we fall under different names. So when you start looking under these different names, that's when you'll start to see them. There are many CCAs out there who have outpaced their counterparts with other credentials and can still make more money. When I had the CCA, made more than degree holders. So just having the CCA does not make you earn less. You can get a job with it. I've got four. I had gotten 4 jobs with that credential. And one was working for a level 1 trauma hospital. And the other one was, working at a very nice hospital that I am at now. And so that's something that don't listen to what you hear. And just because you get the CCA, don't think that you can't get a job, because yes, you can. I did it and I was able to change hearts and minds. So it really is going to take a huge effort of a lot of people to keep doing that. Because sometimes when people, think that somebody else said this about the CCA, they get discouraged and, but I don't want to go into a big long part about that. But I want you guys to know that if you are sitting for this CCS exam, this means that if you are bypassing that CCA, or if you're considering bypassing that CCA and you want to sit for this big kahuna credential, this means that you have to know and you have to be proficient in inpatient coding and outpatient medical coding. And I'm going to get into what that means here in a bit. The other thing is this is the last part of my disclaimers part. What you choose to do and what you choose to be with your certification is entirely up to you. If you fail this exam, you decide to take it and you fail the exam, whether you sit for it again and take another run at it is entirely up to you. Do I encourage people when they have failed to take it again? Of course, because sometimes our nerves get the better of us, or sometimes we're just not ready. So hopefully this video will kind of explain what you should be looking out for to kind of answer that question for yourself if you're ready or not. A lot of times we can be as well prepared as we want to be, but when it comes time for that exam room, you can lose it all, especially if you are not conditioned right in yourself as far as like your thought process and how you're looking at this exam. So make sure you have that right. You have to have that part right, because a lot of people will say, well, Blue, I get really bad test anxiety, and that's the first thing they come out with. Or Blue, I heard and I saw. You're not concerned about what you're hearing and what you're seeing right now. What you need to be concerned with is this exam. The CCS is an expensive exam. It is a very intense exam, and that's what you need to be focused on. You don't need to be focused on all this other stuff. What if you don't pass? People can't get jobs. You don't need to worry about that right now. What you need to worry about is passing the certification exam. So let's get into, with all that out of the way, let's get into how do you know. First, I will say this. If you are depending on this book, which is the CCS practice exam book from AHIMA, if you are depending on this book, whatever edition you're using right now, maybe you're using a used one and it's a couple of years old, or maybe you're using a more current one. If you are depending on this book, you're wrong. If you're passing what's in here, again, you're wrong. If you're thinking that that's going to make you prepared, oh yeah, you're prepared because you passed this book, again, you're wrong. Guys, this book is designed to get you in the mindset of taking a test. None of these questions are on that test. Now, you may think, well, Blue, that's just common sense. Trust me, there's a lot of people. I get emails every week from people disappointed and mad because they spent a lot of money on this book. And they said, well, none of those questions were on the test. They're not supposed to be on the test. If they were, then everybody would pass. The way that these tests are designed is they're randomly selected, these questions, right? And no two tests are the same, okay? This exam, the CCS exam, is a 4-hour exam, and it has, where is it? Between 115 and 140 questions. So roughly, it's about 2 minutes per question, and there are 2 parts. There's multiple choice, and then there's your case studies to sit for in this exam. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. You have to switch your mind off and on, because again, they're testing you on inpatient coding and they're testing you on outpatient coding. The thought processes are completely different. And again, guys, I'm not trying to discourage you. What I'm trying to do is get you prepared. Because again, if you are wanting to sit for this certification, it's going to open up a lot of doors for you once you pass. But you have to know what you're doing in order to get there. And you don't want to barely pass. You want to pass with a couple of touchdowns. That's what you want to do. That's always the goal anyway, right? So I'm going to read a little bit from the AHIMA website. And the first thing is first. So before, it used to be that you had to go through an approved AHIMA program in order to sit for the CCS, or you had to have years of experience. Now it is just recommended. Do you know how many emails I still get from people who say immediately, oh, Blue, I thought you said that I could sit for the CCS, but it says that I need to have all these other classes done first. Okay, here we go, guys. It says right here, eligibility requirements for the CCS, and I'm looking at the AHIMA website right now. While not required, one of the following is recommended to sit for the CCS exam. One of these is recommended, which means, again, it's not required. It's just recommended that you do. Completing courses in all of the following topics: anatomy and physiology, pathophysiology, pharma, can't say that word, but pharma, medical terminology, reimbursement methodology, intermediate and advanced ICD-10, diagnostic coding, procedure coding, and medical services, CPT and HCPCS, plus 1 year of coding experience directly applying codes, or a minimum of 2 years of related coding experience directly applying codes, or hold the CCA credential plus 1 year of coding experience directly applying codes, or holding a coding credential from another certifying organization plus 1 year of coding experience directly applying codes, or hold a CCSP, RHIT, or RHIA credential. So the price, the non-member price, you do not have to be a member of a HEMA in order to take this exam. But if you are not a member, it is $399 for this test. And if you are a member, it is $299, okay? These exams are proctored through Pearson VUE, who is a third-party independent testing facility. So you'd have to see if there's one in your local area, but that is who you would be scheduling it through. Obviously, you have to go through a HEMA first, and then you'll be allowed to schedule with Pearson VUE. So in 2020, there were 2,374 first-time CCS test takers. There was 83% of them that passed on the first try. So again, this exam is quite intense. When I took it last year, I made no bones about it. I was exhausted when I got out of there. I was just physically tired. I had been through a lot that week, and I had been a lot through when I'm sitting through that test, right? And I'm testing, and I'm going through that whole process. And all of it had wore me out by the time I walked out of there, and having my results that I had passed and getting home, and the realization finally hitting me that I have this gold standard of medical coding credentials. You know, I broke down and I cried, because that's how intense, physically intense this test is. So what I tell people is you need to be ready. And you have to have practice. A lot of people will tell me, well, what else can I do? What else can I do? Guys, I am literally telling you what you have to do is practice. And it's reading, and it's thinking on the fly, and it's looking up and knowing your codes, knowing your code ranges, knowing your books. Now, here's the other thing too. The books that you use will make a difference. Everybody has to use the AMA CPT Professional Edition. Okay, everybody has to use that book, but you do have a choice on your ICD-10 CM and ICD-10 PCS books. I always, this is not an ad for Optum 360 coding, but I do recommend them because their books are who I trust. And this is who I studied with. Now, this is a 2021 book. Yes, I just haven't ordered my 2022 for the ICD-10 PCS yet. But in this book, there's an Appendix M like in Mary. There are a bunch of coding questions that you can answer. And so I did that when I was prepping. And so again, that saved me because I was so used to working through the book and learning the book and flipping the pages and knowing where everything was in the book. And that is so important. And a lot of people don't do that. They don't take me seriously when I tell you guys you have to open up all of these books and flip through all the pages. So that way you know these books forwards and backwards. And if your books are tabbed, oh yes, I am going to tell you guys, if your books are tabbed, number one, you're not using the book enough. That's telling me that you're not using your book enough. Now, before you get defensive, hear me out. If you are using this book, you're going to be able to flip and know where to go in the book. You're not going to need and depend on all those tabs, because when you're looking at tabs, you have to sit there and look and see, and you're looking through all of them rather than actually getting in the book and knowing where you are in the book. Okay? So that's why I say it's very important to actually open up these books and flip all the pages and look at everything. You don't have to read everything, but you do have to look at it and make sure that you understand all the approaches. When you're working with the PCS book, right? Know your approaches, know your body systems. Those of you who are telling me, well, Blue, I'm bad with medical terminology, I'm bad with anatomy. Guys, don't even think about the CCS then. You're not ready for it. Because you have to be proficient in medical terminology and anatomy. It's only going to help you when you're looking up these codes or you're trying to figure out what are they doing here in this op note, right? You have to know. And so if you don't and you're not strong, you're not ready. If you don't know your medical terminology, or if you are still getting confused with anatomy, you are not ready. And you have to be honest with yourself. Otherwise, you're going to make a very expensive mistake. And if you say, well, Blue, I'm just going to go ahead and chance it anyway. Okay, you're going to chance it anyway. Even if you do pass, let's just say you barely pass. You have this certification, you're going to get out there, they're going to test you again, because these employers need to know what you know. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to be a CCS holder without a job. So that's why I'm telling you guys, when you sit for these certifications, this is going to be the time when you're saying, yes, I am ready to be a medical coder. Not, I need my hand held, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm still confused, I'm still lost, I don't know medical terminology. This is not for you yet, okay? You still need more studying to do. And if you get like overwhelmed with medical terminology and anatomy, you take that one bite at a time, all right? It is a lot, and we're learning this stuff for years, but you do have to know at least your basics and your foundation. If you don't know your basics and your foundation, and by that on the anatomy, I mean like at least your organ systems and at least your bones and at least the major parts, then you can break down into the detailed parts later on. But at least get an idea of, you know, the major stuff first, right? Your organs, your bones, your muscle groups, your tendons. Get used to that first. Then again, break it down further from there. And your medical terminology, I tell y'all all the time, learn your prefixes, your suffixes, and your root words. And when you do that, you can piece together any medical term. You don't have to sit there and waste time learning whole terms. You can learn your prefixes, your suffixes, and your root words, and that way you'll be able to figure the stuff out because you can piece it together and you can figure that out that way. And if you're looking in your book, here's a bonus. There's, in these books, there's tables that have anatomy in them. There's like the anatomy plates. They also, some of them also have like the commonly used prefixes, suffixes, and root words. And in the back of the CPT book, it has, in the back flap, it has a whole thing of abbreviations. So again, guys, sometimes you're working harder than you need to when the book already has the answers. Again, you don't need to tab. This is the diagnosis book. And why do I recommend the Optum 360 ICD-10-CM book? Because at the beginning of every chapter, there's a whole thing before every single chapter starts that demonstrates how to use the codes in that chapter. And it also gives you the rationale. I know no other publisher who does that. Now, there may be another publisher out there who does it, but I don't know who they are. But I trust Optum. That's why I order from Optum every single time. And right now, when you order, the books are like 55% off the 2022s right now. So again, guys, it's a great deal. They're really a great deal. So here's the CPT book. These three books, that ICD-10 PCS, ICD-10 CM, and the CPT book, are the three books that you need for your CCS exam. These are open book, so you can use your books to take these exams. Notice I don't have the tabs, because again, if you're doing the exercises and the workbooks and everything, oh, I want to sneeze so bad. If you're doing those, you're not going to need those. And guys, I'm going to tell you something else too. These are not workbooks. These books are reference books. They don't need you to be highlighting and circling and writing all these notes. Well, Blue, that's just how I learn. You can learn on note cards. This is your book. When you get into that exam room, and if you look at the candidate hand guide, it literally says excessive writing is not allowed. Like, some writing is okay, but when they see that you're trying to write out all of this stuff, you know, if that person at Pearson VUE, they're supposed to be looking at these books. And if they see that you have all of this writing, you can forfeit your testing fee if they say you have too much writing in your book. So stop writing in y'all's book. Highlighting is okay, I guess, if you absolutely need to do something to the book. But I want to tell y'all this again. You don't know what's going to be on that exam. So all that writing and highlighting, all the time you're wasting writing in your book, you could have been spending that doing something else, like reading your coding guidelines. Oh yeah, and those ICD-10-CM coding guidelines, you think I'm playing when I tell you guys to make sure that you are reading your coding guidelines once per week. The byproduct of reading those coding guidelines once per week is that you're going to get faster with reading. If you are not fast with reading, you are not ready to take the CCS exam. Again, it's like 2 minutes. per question. You cannot flag. You cannot put the questions on hold and go to the next question. You have to answer that question and then you can move on, because they do not allow flagging anymore. They used to, but they don't do that anymore. So again, guys, I have told you guys so many times that you have to be prepared, and knowing these books backwards and forwards, that's going to save you, because then, okay, you're going to know exactly where to go. And if, again, when you're doing that, you're preparing yourself and you're setting yourself up for success. Now, how do I study? Now, I've told you guys before, use the CPC study guide. And yeah, yes, this is a 2019. You can still use it to study with, even with your 2022 books. You may see some codes that are updated, but that's okay. The rationale is in here. If you tell me, well, Blue, I'm more strong on PCS than I am on CPT, you're not ready. You need to be able to confidently say, or even vice versa, Blue, I'm not strong on PCS, but I'm strong on CPT. You're not ready. You're not ready, because you need to be strong on both. I am not an inpatient coder. My entire career has been on the outpatient side. Was I nervous? Yes, I was, because PCS is something completely different from when I took my exam. I took my exam in 2008, but when we were in ICD 9 times. So we weren't even in ICD 10. It wasn't even a dream yet, okay? Because it kept messing around with that. But at the time when I took it, I was still tested on inpatient, right? So I knew inpatient from back then. Now, I had been in all these years, a little over a decade, in the outpatient side. So when you're like that, you're conditioned, your mind is conditioned into CPT. So I knew I had a lot of work to do to learn that PCS book, because it's so different. You're creating those codes. So that's why I said, okay, I need to buckle down. And that's exactly what I did. You have to get on a schedule. You have to study. You have to put in the time. It's not forever. It's just however long that you're going to be studying. Okay. So I know I'm going to have to wrap this up real quick because I got 22 minutes already on the thing. But this is the other book that I used. Now, this AHA book, this ICD-10-CM and ICD-10 PCS, a workbook with the answers, that's the one you want to get, because that's the one that's going to give you the rationale. There's another one that's without the answers. I don't recommend that book, because how do you know if you got it right or not? You can get the 2019 book. It's totally fine. Some of the codes have been updated, but again, the rationale is going to be a lot of the same, okay? And you're going to notice the ones that were updated. And it's okay if you get a newer book. But again, the newer books have the same thing as this, okay? They just update the codes. So if you want to get a little bit of cheaper version just to kind of practice with and study with, this is it. Now, I went through this whole book like I went through the whole CPC study guide too, to practice on the CPT side, even though I didn't really need to, because being on the outpatient side, that's what I see every day anyway. But that ICD-10-CM and ICD-10 PCS book was, again, what I used to study with. Now, you have to go through these, and you got to go through them fast, and you have to start timing yourself. And when you say, well, I'm too slow and I don't know if I should, okay, then you're not ready. Because the ones that are ready are going to be like, okay, I have been practicing, I have been going through the studies, and I know my books forward and backward. I know my coding guidelines. I know how to find the answers when I need to. Those are the people that have a better chance of being ready, because they have taken it seriously. The CCS exam is a monster, and it is really going to test you. And even really, really studious people I have seen, really smart people, have failed this test. Nurses have failed this test. So if you're thinking that, oh, somebody who has a medical background already, it must be easy for them, trust me, it's not. And I'm pretty sure that there's some doctors out there who have tried to take the CCS and who have failed it. I just haven't heard of any. Like, they don't come and tell me. Nurses have. Other medical professionals have as well. Because this exam is no joke. So if you are thinking about it, if you're on the fence, whether to take the CCA or the CCS, are both good credentials. And if you hear anybody tell you, you can't get a job with the CCA, yes, you can. I did it 4 times and got really good pay. So again, that's just for people who don't know. But with the CCS, you have to be prepared, folks. You got to read fast. And knowing those coding guidelines and reading them once per week, that's going to get you that training to go faster with your reading. Get really good with your medical terminology and your anatomy. and then, you know, consider taking the exam then. But make sure that you have done your practice, and do not depend on that CCS exam prep book from AHEMA to be your marker of, oh yeah, you're ready because you passed that book. That book is nothing compared to the test itself. I'm just saying. So if you're out there, you're going to take this exam, I wish you the best on your journey. I wish you the best on your exam. Make sure you do not cram before this exam. It's not worth it, guys. You learned all you're going to learn. At least that's just my advice anyway. Thank you, and I hope that you'll share this if it helped you. Like, subscribe, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye.